Hello everybody. This week I wanted to talk about something I've been wanting to talk about a long time, and that's motorcycle design and construction. I have been tearing apart, building, sort of, customizing, and riding motorcycles for about, I don't even know, 5-6 years, something like that. Taking a couple long distance trips. Got a couple in my garage to drive around town. But just like anything in the art trade, when you obsess about something, you're sort of better at drawing it, right? If you're an architectural person and you really dig in, you're going to be better at drawing architectural stuff because you spent the time to pay attention, right? So I was going to do a quick breakdown of what motorcycles are, the different versions of them, and how to sort of fudge drawing one quicker. Nothing's worse to somebody who understands the motorcycle's anatomy than reading a comic book and seeing exhaust pipes come out of fuel tanks, or foot pegs connected to the wrong place or something like that, or wires just randomly strewn about, and to a further degree just bad motorcycle design, right? I would argue that most of the Judge Dredd bikes are just freaking hideous, just awful, right? So I was just going to go around this spread real quick and show you guys what we're working with here. We've got two major motorcycle sort of archetypes, right? The sport bike, right? And the cruiser. Basically the two styles. There's a lot of styles. There's, I'll throw a spread down. There's like dozens of motorcycle styles. You got bagger, chopper, and then you got the Harley Davidson names like Fat Boy and Street Glide and stuff like that. There's just, there's dozens of little micro niches when it comes to motorcycles. But what I'm going to show you today is basically the quick and easy way to sort of fudge a motorcycle design. So we're actually going to start with the easier one. We're going to start with the very typical Harley Davidson style, which is this guy here. And if you look at a bicycle frame, a motorcycle frame's not far from it, really. I mean, this just, if you put pedals on this, you could probably drive it around. It would be absurdly heavy. This is probably a couple 100 pounds already. And this has the primary on the bottom down here, so that, try to ignore that. But if you look at this frame here, you've got this guy here, which is called the spine. And then these are the down tubes here. And then this is, you want to pay attention to this. This stuff's really important. This is, I believe this is, I forgot what it's called, but this connects the trees for the steering. This little notch up here, right? You'll see why in a minute. You get these down tubes here that form the bottom. So the bottom of the bike is very much a square, right? For the most part, for this design. There are some diversity out there in designs. Every manufacturer tries to make it differently. But, that's basically what we're working with. Now, where it starts to get interesting is towards the back, right? Now, this is called a hardtail. There's no suspension. There's nothing. Usually there's a suspension point here where the back of the bike, rotates and then there's like a spring in here to make it, to give you some suspension. So every time you hit a bump, you don't break your spine, right? This is a hardtail, so the rear axle is going to go right through here, and every bump you hit, you're going to feel it, right? So let's move on to the next one. This is a more typical design. You can't see it, but there are two down tubes here going to the bottom. Here's our spine. It's a little straighter than normal. Now here's where those two trees connect. This is a hollow tube up here at the top of the frame. You got two trees connected here and here. So one bolt goes through here, and then the two forks go through the front. So you got one fork going on the right side of the front tire and another fork going down the other side of the tire, right? And then that third connection point connects to the frame right here. So you've got your tree from the top. This is the frame, and then this is one fork, and this is the other fork from the top. And there's two of those, usually, right? Okay, so the part I was talking about before, you've got the frame connecting like this, and then you've got something called a swing arm. This is going to use this word a lot. The swing arm's connected to the frame here, and it goes back, usually on two sides, holding the rear tire in place, the rear wheel, just like the forks in the front. This is basically a rear fork, right? And then you've got the tail off the back of the frame, and then you've got your suspension attached to the frame and the swing arm. So the actuation point is right here. That's this part that pivots, And you've got the suspension here, making your ride less murderous, basically. Okay. And this is the most of it right here. So your handlebar attaches to this top tree here, right? And then handlebars can be anything. Handlebars can curve down like this. Handlebars can go up like these big ape hangers here. That's actually what they're called. You got straight handlebars like this. Sky's the limit. Look them up. It's a fun time. Or you got clip-ons that actually clip onto the fork like that. So it's a really low profile kind of ride. And you'll see more clip-ons on the sport bike when we scroll up. Okay. Now, this is what a finished design looks like. This is Arch Motorcycles. This is actually Keanu Reeves' motorcycle company, right? But this is all the parts put on, right? So we've got our frame. We've got he's got more of a sport swing arm, so it looks kind of like this, and it's probably only one side rather than both, right? And then if you look deeply right here, here's our shock. It's inside. It's behind the frame. Here's the frame supporting the seat. In between those 2 points is it's called a monoshock. There's one shock right in the middle that connects to the swing arm. It's one big heavy-duty suspension supporting the swing arm and everything in the back. And that's a lot. Plus, with the wheel and the swing arm and all the stuff attached, it's a lot of weight. And this one shock's doing all of it, okay? So, more typically, bottom of the motorcycle is the transmission and the primary. That's this big block down here. And then everything on top of that are the pistons. You know, the part that makes the bang, right? These are the pistons up top. Now, this is in a V formation. You're going to hear this a lot with the Harley Davidsons. This is a V twin. Okay, this is two pistons in a V formation, working, you know, in a V sort of pattern. It goes left, right, and makes a bang. And then you've got the exhaust. You got the exhaust coming out right here. I don't know if you can see it. I've sort of covered it up. But you've got one exhaust per piston, usually. Okay, you've got one coming out here and going up. And you got another one coming out of this one and connecting. So it's a 2-into-1 exhaust. And let me get rid of this so we can try again. We got one exhaust coming out here and another exhaust coming out here. See that? And it connects right here. So it's a 2-into-1 exhaust into one muffler. That's the exhaust. That's pretty important. So you can goof and have exhaust come out and doing all sorts of crazier things. You know, a lot of people go out of this front frame and then come around. You know, there's a lot of goofy things you can do. Again, I'm using research right now. And I'll freehand one when we get closer to the end here. But I just wanted to... Well, we might not have time. Shoot. Anyway. So, as we get back to our original layout, we've got, you know... We got our gas can up here. And that's fun. You can design different gas cans. You got different seats. Different seats have different patterns. And you got our tailpiece, which is usually where our brake sits, on the end of the tailpiece. We got our typical fork setup. Nothing too crazy. The angle here of the fork, forgot what that's called. The rake. All right, that's called a rake. The angle of the front fork. You see some where, you know, here's the frame, and then here's the seat, right? And then you see these huge choppers love to do this. Really put the rake way out here. Sean Murphy's motorcycle had this in Punk Rock Jesus, and I absolutely love it. Right, big fat rear tire. Right, that's called a rake, I believe. All right. And then finally, this is just what a cruiser looks like with a bunch of crap on it. It's got luggage on the back, big long pipes that go all the way to the back of the bike. They got this huge aerodynamic shoot, I forgot what they call it, front cover on the front. Usually there's pieces of plastic that come out all the way over the handlebars. So when you go on highway speeds, you're just not getting hit in the face with, you know, rocks and the wind buffeting off the back of the semi-truck in front of you, and it's just a much easier ride. Usually these guys have two air suspension underneath. It's like, I think they call it pillow suspension sometimes too. You got two huge air pistons underneath supporting the swing arm. So they're very comfortable rides, right? Okay, so that's your typical cruiser setup. Now it gets a little weirder. We got sport bikes. Sport bikes have everything from this tube construction to this weird sort of aluminum, I call it like a claw, right? Because the engine hangs on underneath. So it's like hanging onto it from above, right? But what you can tell is that there's the spine from the old design is now more like a horseshoe, but we've still got our connecting piece up front with our trees. We still have two forks, and we still have a swing arm. Now this is a double swing arm, so it's going also like a horseshoe around the back. And you can't see it, but here's the connection point for that monoshock. So when the monoshock goes in, it's probably going to go, I don't know where this bike would go. It's either going to go up like this to another connection point, or this monoshock's going to go back here and connect to like some sort of rear fender operation, right? But then after the gas tank and the seat, you know, this bike is going to look something like this. You got a headlight up front. There you go. You got a functional motorcycle, right? Pretty cool. And then here we are in the end. Now this is a naked sport bike, so they didn't put many fairings on there to cover what's going on. This one's a bit of a mess to look at, right? It's pretty crazy. Here's the main engine component here, right? Our pistons are going to go up this way. Now this looks like it's probably a 2 or 4 cylinders, probably a 4 cylinder. Sometimes they get up to 6. It gets kind of crazy, right? But what this means is this engine is now turned facing forward. The pistons, instead of going like this, left, right, V, are turned. It's usually, what do they call, like a parallel 4, I believe they call it, or an inline 4. So if we were to turn this bike 90 degrees, we'd have 4 cylinders, 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. This is the front of the bike, right? Here's the wheel and the headlight, right? And then, so you've got exhausts probably doing something like this, connecting all 4 cylinders, you know, something like that. Usually, like I said, you have a pipe per exhaust. It's making a bang, and that bang has got to push out. It's got to exhaust. That explosion's got to vent. So just like before, here's our frame in here, but then we've got our gas tank, headlight, both forks up front. Now this picture has no rear swing arm, but we're just to assume it's on the other side of the picture, right? So it does have a swing arm. It's probably like this on the other side, you know, something like this. It's gonna have a monoshock in here somewhere, you know. But so once you know the anatomy, you know what you're looking at, right? I guess this is gonna be a longer video than I thought, and that's fine. So we've got our seat up here with this. I don't know what this is. This is really cool. I imagine this bump right here is going to keep your butt in the seat, so when you hit the gas, you don't go flying off the back of the bike, right? So those feel really great, by the way. When you have a bump in the seat, so when you pull the throttle, you've got something keeping you there. That's pretty nice, right? So put it all together, you kind of have something that looks like a bike, right? It's a mess, but once you start to understand the anatomy, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Now, finally, this is a really shitty photo. I'm sorry. A lot of people drawing sport bikes will just draw a finished sport bike with all this body paneling on. These are called fairings. This is covering most of the guts of the bike. I should have found a better picture. This is really hideous. But yeah, this piece here is covering most of the anatomy. Now, if you look up references, you'll find a lot of different types, but by and large, this is typically the setup. You've got our foot pegs back here, right? So when you're riding a bike like this, you know, here's your butt, here's your chest, your arms are going to come up here, and then here's your head, somewhere on this area, so the wind's going to hit it and go up and over. And then, so your legs aren't going up here, right? That way, there are some bikes that do that. It's obnoxious, and it doesn't feel very good, and it cuts off circulation. So most bikes have you in this sort of situation, right? That's typically the stance. Let me go back and talk about the Harley here. The Harley has like mid controls, so your legs are going to be basically right underneath you. You're going to be pretty much sitting straight up with your hands on the grip here. That's typically the setup for this kind of bike. Now sometimes they got the controls way out front, so your feet go more like this, right? And then sometimes the handlebars are up here, so your hands actually go above you. It's kind of fun. You get to goof off with motorcycle design when you know the anatomy, where foot pegs usually go, stuff like that, right? So, knowing all this information, right, now comes time for the demonstration. And I'm going to put a slight spin on it because I've done this before. Maybe I won't. So, you want to you can sort of experiment. Now, if you look at like concept art and vehicles, they usually do like lines, right? What's the line of the motorcycle? And when you increase the stance and the height of the gas tank, and where the seat comes out, and where the tail stops, and how far the rake is, you know, you typically draw in gestures first because you want to, you know, you're designing something, but you want it to have like a look, right? So what are the lines? What kind of line? What kind of line, right? What kind of line do you want to portray? How far out is that rear wheel? Where's the ground, first off? There we go. You know, so this is a long bike. This would be hard to turn in the middle of a street, right? When you're going this long, the turning radius is ridiculous. That's why they put wheels closer together, so you can turn around quicker, right? So, you know, what kind of swing arm do you want? Do you want that really basic, square, out-of-the-box, factory-built swing arm? Or do you want one of those cool sport bike swing arms that looks more like a claw, a lobster claw, something like that, right? I don't know if that's going to fit my design. This bike is a bit long. I'm gonna change my decision here. It's a bit too long for my liking. Right? There's those precious down tubes that we mentioned before. Back of the bike's gonna go back up. I do want my gas tank to have a slight upswing to it. We're gonna have our light right there. All right, now it's starting to come together. Now we think, what stance do we want this person to have who's driving it, right? Do we want him sitting straight up? Do we want him sitting back? I'm gonna increase the rake on this guy though. If I can sort of fudge that somehow. I think long rakes look really mean. Like I said, more impossible to drive. But now there's a lot of little accessories that you see. You know, like this guy here is a belly pan. I don't know why it's called that, but you know, obviously it's on the bottom of the bike, so it's towards the, I guess, the belly of the motorcycle, if you want to put it that way. So I kind of want my handlebars to go the direction of the bike, but I could feasibly see something like that going on too. And I've actually ridden a bike with high handlebars before. It's not as uncomfortable as you think it would be, believe it or not. And I do want front controls, so let's put our feet up here. Sometimes you can, you know, draw the rider first, you know, if you know what you're doing, and then design the bike around it. You know you want how to ride. You want to, you know your posture. You want your posture to be. So you get the posture down, and then you fashion the bike around the posture. And you know, they'll take, when you go to a Harley Davidson shop, they'll sit you down on a bike and they say, like, is this comfortable? Do you like this? And they'll change the bike according to, you know, how you want to ride. I think this body's a little big, to be honest. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to kill that. I don't usually go this fast. I'm scribbling pretty quickly here, but I do want to keep the video under 20 minutes, but you know, I'm not trying to bore everybody to death with details and stuff like that. But if you got a motorcycle in your project and you don't want to look like a complete rookie and you want to be able to fudge a design, it's good to remember the frame, the swing arm, where the engine sits inside of that frame. You know, the posture of the rider, of course. Also, you could fathomably design the bike around what they're doing, right? Is he a vigilante driving around in a city and he needs to get into tight places? You probably don't want a big, long bike like this because they're really hard to drive. They're good for long distances. They're not good for turning. You know, but is your Ghost Rider going from Kansas City to Las Vegas? Then yeah, maybe a big cruiser is the way to go. right? There's a reason you have small little lorry trucks, little delivery trucks that are in the city, like sprinters. And you got these big, huge semi-trucks for long distance with air ride cabs and sleeping quarters and stuff like that, right? It's different purposes, different uses. All right? Now this seat ended up being a little lower than my original design, but I'm going to adjust for that. Alright, so here's that hollow point in the frame I mentioned earlier. This bike is pretty exposed, so here's my down tubes. So I've got some controls that are way off the frame of the bike here. And those happen. You can get that. It's all about preference. I know I'm not 100% nailing this. Actually, in that fork tube attachment point needs to change, right? Because it's got to match what we're working with here. We've got our two trees that need to match the angle, right? This needs to be a right angle here, usually, so that our forks have trees at a 90-degree angle, right? So you can put your speedometer right here if you want, right? And then, you know, your headlight can attach. I'm going to do it below. I've done that before. You're going to attach the headlight below the lower tree, right? That's pretty cool. Nice low headlight. Why not? We didn't really talk about how wheels attach, but again, photo reference is your friend. You know, a lot of these bikes don't have any front brakes at all. So you can do just an axle in the middle. I'm not using an ellipse tool. I'm just sort of... I'm on coffee and no food, so this circle is as good as it gets right now, guys. But, you know, you can do any sort of wheel pattern. You can do spokes. You can do mag. Don't see a lot of three-point mag on motorcycles. This bike's looking a little small. Hey, let me beef this boy up a little bit. There we go. Now he's not riding a kid's bike. Probably shrink him down a little bit too. Riding a mini bike. That's part of it too. You want to be, you want to be mindful of the size of your rider and the size of your bike, so it doesn't look like he's riding like a child riding a bike, or that the bike is too big. Stuff like that. You got to be mindful of all this stuff. So let's put him on a V-twin, because most choppers are. Even if it's not a Harley-Davidson, V-twin is very much a norm when it comes to out-of-the-box motorcycle engines, right? Typically the battery goes... Well, it depends. If it's carbureted, you're going to have an air box behind the rear cylinder right here. If it's not, if it's fuel injected, you typically have the oil pan right above the primary, right underneath the seat on one side, and the battery on the other. Sometimes the battery goes a little further back here, but a lot of times they'll have a big piece of adornment or plastic underneath the seat here. You can put the logo on there. You can make it transparent so you can see through it. Sometimes some of these bikes don't have batteries at all. They're magneto charged, so it's that you kickstart the bike, and then the electricity from the bike keeps the bike running. It's pretty crazy. I'm running a little low on time. You sort of get the point here. I'm just sort of doodling and running my mouth. We'll do a hard point here with the swing arm. So let's move it forward a little bit. Sort of winging it here. I don't know if that would work. We'll do a monoshock hidden back here. Why not? Right, monoshock. Now the nerds will be happy. The bike has suspension. Only thing I haven't drawn yet is exhaust pipes, and we can have fun with that in a second. Obviously this wheel is very ugly. I want it to be bigger, but we're going under our horizon line here, so Let me grab this swing arm and swing it up. There we go. Now I'm sort of being a little judicious with the design here. Or, that's probably not the right word. Liberal? Here it is. So this doesn't quite work, but it would take a dork to look at it and go, yeah, that wouldn't work, right? For the most part, people would look at this and go, oh, that's a pretty cool bike, man. You know? And I've drawn lots of other bikes. If you look up my work, I've drawn a lot of superheroes and bikes, and I usually put a bike in one of my comics just because I love them to death. Right, now let's put some really cool exhaust on here. We're going to go out the front, across the bottom. Can't even really see it at this point, but there we go. And we'll do one here. I'm going to go just like that. Why not? Okay. Not great, but serviceable. Right? Believable, I would say. You can have a brake line coming off the top. If you want front brakes up here, right? You have a front line coming out here. You got, there's lots of other details we can get into, guys. We got brake lines. We've got, you know, the throttle on the right and clutch on the left. Clutch cable is going to come down off the left handle and go down to the transmission, stuff like that. There's lots of little details, you know. We can do a whole other part if people are like, oh my god, that's great, but we need more details. Then I would love to do that for you. Just let me know. But that's basically it, guys. Here's a fun motorcycle I did in, what, 5-10 minutes based on all our research, right? But yeah, thanks for watching. I had a good time. Hopefully you learned something. And if you need more info, let me know. Have a good day. Bye-bye.